Okay, this is Moms Learning with Moms. Melanie, what we're going to talk about Mathew today. What did you think he had?
He started really having issues with like a broken cracker or just kind of imperfections in things we were doing, or torn paper. And he'd be kind of inconsolable. Um, and then we went to Disneyland, and he just like we couldn't calm him down about like a ride that had shut down, and it really kind of ruined our trip. And we ended up cutting that trip short, and we took our car and drove to see some family in Arizona. And it was there that we were kind of really worried at that point. I hadn't really thought or known about Asperger's, but a woman that we just kind of ran into that was a friend of the family, she had some expertise in that area. And so I just kind of had a discussion with her, kind of some things we were struggling with Mathew. And she said, well, I kind of would wonder about Asperger's. At that point, I kind of had my foot in the door with some speech therapy in our area because my older daughter was receiving speech therapy. And so I went there first to see if we could get him tested. And so he never was diagnosed with Asperger's, and I don't actually believe that's what he had. Although I think Asperger's is very broad. I don't know if there's I just think there's such a broad spectrum that it's very possible that he maybe was on there or is on there. But what they ended up testing him, after they tested him, said that he had a speech and language. I don't know if it was a delay, but basically a disconnect. And it made so much sense after they told me that he was hearing what we were saying. There was nothing wrong with his hearing, but he couldn't process it. And he was having a problem knowing what we were saying and what we were meaning and understanding.
Now, I remember at one point you were doing drawings for him that ended up helping him quite a bit. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I actually feel like a lot of kids would benefit from this. I mean, for him it was necessary, but because he wasn't understanding what we were saying, and he was also very he really relied on a schedule. And it was, and I think all kids are like this. Is really important for them to know what's happening. And I think, I mean, if you think about their lives, if they don't understand what's going on, like they can get thrown in a car, you're just taking them to the grocery store, but they don't understand or know. And you can see how it could be scary for a kid to not know what's going to be happening during the day and just get taken here and there and just have no warning because they don't understand. So for him, he was not understanding. So I would sit down with him at the beginning of the day and make drawings of our day. So like number one, I'd maybe draw a plate with a fork. We're gonna have breakfast. Number two, make our bed. And number three, get dressed. Number four, and I would, if we were gonna go somewhere, I would try to draw a picture that would symbolize that. And we called it a map, and he would carry it around for the day, and it just helped him know that there was order and kind of be aware of what the day was going to bring, and he wasn't just getting thrown here and there.
Was he ever scared if like it didn't happen, if the drawings, would he tell you what was going on, or else could he communicate that much?
Yeah, no, I actually think that even if the drawing didn't go exactly as planned, he was able to help, like we could rearrange it, and he was able to cope with that. And my older daughter, I think, helped him a little bit too, because she was just 2 years older and kind of so he was following her, so I think that helped. But no, I don't think I don't think it really scared him if we didn't, but it definitely helped our day go smoother, and he seemed to be a lot more at ease. Maybe more anxious would be the word, as if he just kind of get anxious if we weren't following the plan, or if he didn't know what was happening. After we got him into a preschool where they started working with him, he really, like, he still struggled, and I'd say probably his biggest struggles were social, because he was very smart, and but he just didn't, he interacted well with our family and his siblings, but friends, he seemed to just kind of play by himself, and he wouldn't look
Did he
adults in the eye.
did he seem nervous like by them,
um
or just uncomfortable, or like
yeah, I'd say uncomfortable, like even grandparents, he wouldn't connect with, he wouldn't make eye contact. um and so socially we were more worried about him than any other area. um but things improved a lot with the help we got from the preschool. And I don't even know exactly what they did. I mean, they worked with him, and he was also receiving speech therapy. But so that's kind of like the path that we took. And really, even into elementary school, I worried about him socially, which is interesting because, and I don't know if he just found other friends that were kind of just had the same quirks, that he's actually done really well socially going into middle school. And he does really great communicating with adults. He looks people in the eye now. But I think the biggest thing that I learned from the process that we went through, and I realize now too that maybe his concerns weren't as severe as some people might have, but I remember there being another little boy his age that his mom was having some similar concerns, and she knew that I had put Mathew in a preschool. And so she asked me about it, and I said, yes, like this has been so good. And so, but her husband was hesitant to even get him tested because he didn't want there to be anything wrong. And I think anytime you have a concern with a child, getting intervention as early as you can is going to benefit them the most. And the worst thing that can happen is that you get help soon. The the best case scenario is that there is no issue, like this is normal, and you can walk away and rest easy, knowing that you had advocated for your child to the best of your ability. The sooner you can get kids help, and this goes with speech too, the more functional they're able to be, and the you're able to help them more the earlier you intervene. So I think the biggest thing is early intervention. I think that everyone should get, well, not everyone, but I think that people would really benefit from just getting a second opinion, a professional opinion. I think sometimes people have concerns, and there's a few reasons why you wouldn't ever, like, it takes work. Sometimes you don't know who to even ask. Like, I had no idea there was this resource. I just happened to know a speech pathologist in the area, and she said, well, you should do this, and this. And so I felt really lucky that I even knew about it, because I don't think I would have if I hadn't have already kind of had a daughter in speech. So I'd say some of those things that were concerning at first have kind of turned into gifts. Um, and it's interesting too, because you can also still see him I'm trying to think of a good example, but he'll get stuck kind of in the same way, like if he had a broken cracker, like it would almost just stop him in his tracks until he figured it out. And now it's more like if he gets in an argument with a sibling and they just are going to say, I'm just done, I don't want to talk about it anymore, he won't just walk away. He needs to like finish what he was going to say. It needs to be resolved, and the other person has to agree that he's right. Like it causes problems in a way, but it's also like, I mean, it's just kind of funny how like he still has a lot of those same characteristics and things that maybe we struggled with at one point, but he's learned just to be a normal person with them and to deal with them. And sometimes we see him as gifts, and sometimes it's like kind of a I don't know, like maybe an annoying thing. Just a quirk, I guess, but you love him for it, and it's definitely not debilitating him like we had worried it would. I mean, he was in charge of an activity a few weeks ago, and he was just very, I wouldn't say he was anxious, but he just wanted to make sure all the ducks were lined up. And And at one point, I mean, like, I'm like, it's fine, you know, we have this all together, you're ready, but he just wanted to make sure it was all there and stuff. Anytime that, like there's like a little red flag, I just think you're not you're not out anything to ask questions. And even if there is no clinical diagnosis of anything that you need to get, you know, a lot of help for, and I think this might have helped Matthew, is like just learning a little bit of like what would help some kids would probably help most kids. I think like the map idea would probably help most kids that are little. Even just working through the activities that they do in their preschool would have helped anybody.
Great. Anything else you feel like helped or?
No, just as I was thinking about him, just that early intervention, just asking for help, asking for a second opinion. And I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest advice I'd have for anyone in any situation, because I obviously don't know what it's like to have a child with autism. But you know, I think it doesn't really matter what you're dealing with, just getting a little bit, you know, a second opinion, extra advice, is really important for our children. So,
Great. Thanks, Melanie.
yeah, thank you.
All right, this is Shayla and Melanie. Melanie joined us today, and just keep learning.